Telling me, John, this is like a 3-hour sermon. No one's listening to you for 3 hours. And I'm like, I don't know how to make it shorter. And she's like, well, not my fault. But when we look at experiencing the glory of God, how can you, or how can any human ever give you a clear picture of how we can experience the glory of God in just a few moments? And that is what we're going to attempt to do today. And I think the key is we don't understand the glory of God. We really have no clue about the glory of God. We have this abstract idea of what the glory of God is. You know, we think of the Shekinah glory of God, in the temple, where God dwelled with men on earth, in the Holy of Holies. The fire, the brightness that when Moses went into one-on-one conversation with God, when he left, his face glowed to a point where he had to put a veil over his face so people can actually look at him. He spent time in the glory of God. And I think that's what we kind of think of when we think the glory of God. But we forget the glory of God is in the little things. The almighty, powerful God of the universe is not seen only in the big moments. And I put forth that the reality is he is seen more fully in the small, moment-to-moment, day-by-day, normal aspects of life. And the reason I say that, and I think that's even more powerful, is seeing a big event once a year is awesome. You know, Troy has a thing called Troy Fest, where it's around 4th of July, we all go, the whole town comes out, and at the end of the day they have, Katie goes to free ice cream, and then they have fireworks. I love fireworks. And it is a beautiful, almost a half an hour, 40-minute display of fireworks. And at the very end, the fine finale. We all love the finale, the big, big moment. And that's what we remember. And that's what we enjoy. We look forward to that. That's something that sticks with us. And it's impressive. And that's what we look at the glory of God as, something big. But think about this. Imagine if you had that experience every day, multiple times a day. Would that not be even better? You know, there's a song, too much of a good thing is a good thing. When it comes to the glory of God, when we recognize that the glory of God is in the little things, in the moment-by-moment aspects of our daily life, we become more in love with God. That our relationship with God is deepened because we see Him constantly showing us His glory in every little detail of our lives. The Creator, the Master of the universe, is that concerned with your moment by moment. And that's what we're going to look at today. That's what we're going to discover today. And it is in Isaiah chapter 40. And we're going to be looking at Isaiah chapter 40, verses 12 through 31. And this is a wonderful story of how we are to experience God's glory. Before we start, let's pray. Father God, I thank you for this day. I thank you that you have showered us with your glory in the little things, Lord. Lord, I pray right now that you open our hearts and minds to what your word has to say. You remove any obstacles, myself included, from hearing your message to your people. Amen. So, Isaiah chapter 40, starting in verse 12. And at this point, I'm going to read the whole entire passage, and then we're going to go back and start looking at verse for verse. So read with me Isaiah chapter 40, starting in verse 12. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, measured the heavens with a span, and circulated the dust of the earth in a measure? Weighed the mountains in scales and the hills in a balance? Who has drank the Spirit of the Lord, or as his counselors has taught him, or as his counselors has taught him? With whom did he take counsel, and who instructed him, and taught him in the path of justice? Who taught him knowledge and showed him the way of understanding? Behold, the nations are as a drop in a bucket, and are counted as a small dust on the scales. Look, he lifts up the isles as a very little thing. And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor be sufficient for a burnt offering. All nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted by him less than nothing, and worthless. To whom then will you liken God? Or what likeness will you compare to him? The workman molds an image, the goldsmith overspreads it with gold, and the silversmith casts silver chains. Whoever is too impoverished for such a contribution chooses a tree that will not rot. He seeks for himself a skillful workman to prepare a carving image that will not totter. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circles of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. He brings the princes to nothing. He makes the judges of the earth useless. Scarcely shall they be planted, scarcely shall they be sown, scarcely shall their stock take root in the earth. When he will also blow on them, and they will wither, and the whirlwind will take them away like stubble. To whom then will we liken me? Or to whom shall I be equal, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes on high, and see who created these things, who brings out their hosts by number. He calls them by name, by the greatness of his might and the strength of his power. None, not one is missing. Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my just claim is passed over by my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth. I have to stop right there for a moment. That one verse just blows me away. The power in that one verse. Let's read again. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, neither faints nor is weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might he increases strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. That's a lot, and we're going to learn all about it today. As I said, it was 3 hours, so we might be here a while. You had donuts and coffee, you had your chance. So what I want to do very quickly is I want to start in verse 12. Let's go verse by verse and understand how this passage shows us how we can experience the glory of God. So starting in verse 12, we see God's attributes. In verse 12, it says, "Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, measured the heavens with a span, and circulated the dust of the earth in a measure, weighed the mountains in the scales, and the hills in a balance?" Simply put, it's God versus us. Can we do any of that? With all our scientific knowledge, can we do that? No, we can't. We are unable to do what God can do without any effort. And then in verses 13 and 14. In 13 and 14, we see two questions here. The first question is, who has directed the Spirit of the Lord, or as his counselor has taught him? We're looking at God's omnipotence. God's omnipotence. This is an all-powerful God. Who, and the author Isaiah is saying, who is all-powerful? Is there someone more powerful than God that needs to give him instructions? And then the second question we look at in verse 14, with whom did you take counsel, and Who instructed him and taught him in the path of justice? Who taught him knowledge and showed him the way of understanding? This question is showing God's all-knowing. Who is teaching God? Who is teaching God? There's not one person more powerful or more knowledgeable than God. In verses 13 and 14, we see that God is all-powerful, omnipotence, and He's all-knowing, omniscient. He is an all-knowing God. He's an all-powerful God. In verse 12, we see that God, we can't even compare ourselves to God. In verses 13 and 14, we see that He is all-knowing and He's all-powerful. And then we see that God is the ruler. Verse 15. Behold, the nations are as a drop in a bucket, and are counted as a small dust on the scales. Look, He lifts up the isles as a very little thing. We think we're pretty impressive. We as a nation, we think, hey, we got this going on. We've been around for quite some time. Now, if you were British, you'd say, well, at one time I ruled most of the world. What nation did I not invade? And then you can look at even older empires, the Ottoman Empire. We ruled all of the Middle East and Asia. Then you look at the Chinese Empire. Thousands of years did they rule. You can look at the Roman Empire, one of the most successful empires. They had peace throughout the known world. They ruled the known world. Before that, you had Alexander the Great. He was conqueror of the world. By a young age, he ruled the world. But in verse 15, it says, behold, the nations are a drop in the bucket. When it comes compared to God, all of that, the Roman Empire, us, the Byzantine Empire, the British Empire, America, nothing. It is nothing compared to God. And then in verse 16, we see that He's exalted above everything. And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor to be sufficient for a burnt offering. And I think this verse needs a little bit of an explanation. The Cedars of Lebanon was and still is a saying. When David was going to build the temple of God, he wanted the best wood for the temple. And so he called up Lebanon, the king. Hey, buddy, it's me, David. I need your wood. I need you to cut down some trees and send them to me. Now, David was a mighty ruler, and if a mighty ruler called you, you're like, well, I don't know. You're like, oh, you need something? Well, I'll give it to you. Just don't invade my country. But the Cedars of Lebanon were tall, were straight, were magnificent. They were the best of the best. If you wanted the best wood for your house, you got a cedar from Lebanon. God is saying here, or Isaiah is saying here, in verse 16, that all the wood, all the cedars of Lebanon, would not be enough if you burnt them as a sacrifice. Would not be enough. And also it goes on and says, nor its beasts. You had, with Lebanon, you had the Golan Heights, right near Israel's border. And they had these, the cows of Bashan. And during that time, if you wanted to really impress your girlfriend or wife, you would look at her. Imagine you saying this to my wife, Katie, when I look at you, you're like a cow of Bashan. Now at that time, she was like, oh, John. Now she goes, oh, John. Not ever call my wife, especially in your pregnant state, you're a cow, baby. Just would not do. But at that time, the cows of Bashan were a thing. They were the best of the best. If you're going to do sacrifice a bull, you want a cow of Bashan. What God is saying, or Isaiah is saying here, is if you took all the cows of Bashan, the best, and burnt them, it would not be enough to satisfy the glory of God. That worship is not enough. That's saying a lot about who God is. that even the best that the world has to offer is not enough to bring glory to God. Then in verse 17 it says, all nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted by him less than nothing, and are worthless. This is now, Isaiah is kind of sandwiching his argument. Remember back in verse 15. If you look back at verse 15, it says, behold, the nations are a drop in the bucket. They are counted as small dust on scale. He is basically saying the same thing. Us versus God. We are nothing compared to who God is. Now, the reason Isaiah is kind of hammering this is we don't get it. We do not get that we are not equal to God. The reason I can say that is how many of us dictate to God how we're going to live. Even in our prayers, we dictate to God what we want, not what He wants. God, going to work today, I need a good day. Give me a good day, God. Give me what I want. When we should be praying, God, if it's your will, let me have a good day today. And if I don't have a good day, give me the strength to make it through. But instead we say, God, this is what I want. Come on. I went to church. I paid my offering. Time for you to give me something in return. God, as I go and do this, please help me be successful. I need this to be successful. We should be praying, God, if it is your will, let my plans glorify you, and let me have success to bring honor to your name. Now, there's not a game of semantics. We're not just changing the words to get the same result. It's the meaning of it. Are you praying selfishly so you get what you want? Are you praying in such a way, say, God, direct my life and give me the strength to cope with it when it's not what I want? There's two different things here. See, we constantly try to dethrone God and put ourselves in it. Think about when you buy a car. Does God care what kind of car you buy? Yes, He does. Does God care what kind of soda you drink? Yes, He does. God cares about every little detail of your life. Are you asking for His guidance, or are you just doing it yourself? Now, I'm not saying when you go to a restaurant, put the menu out, I see Becky doing this, and Barbara going, Becky, that is just weird. Putting out the menu. Dear Jesus, I want a meal. Help me choose a meal. I'll order chicken parm, please. No, that's weird. Don't do that. That's weird. Don't do that, please. When you're at a restaurant, don't do that. But you know what you might want to start doing? Is saying, I'm going to go out to eat today. It's going to cost money. Have you considered how much you're tithing to the church? How much you're giving to missions? Compared to how much you're spending when you go out to eat. Katie and I had a revelation the other week when we were doing our budget. We do not like to go out to eat all the time. It's just something we cannot afford. So we'll go, after church sometimes we'll go to Wendy's so the kids aren't crying all the way home. And we do that often. Sometimes we'll go out to eat. And we found out our fast food, this is only fast food restaurants, for the month was almost $200. We never spent more than $10 at any fast food restaurant. That's a lot of big chickens. Because see, I get these coupons on my phone. I can get 10 chicken nuggets for $10 or for $2. And if I go to the doctor's office, they'll be quiet if I'm shoving chicken nuggets in them. And so, hey, why not? But you know what that means? I just spend more money than I expected on fast food, which is going to dictate the rest of my budget. Which will dictate, reality is, how much I can give to God. If I only have $1,000 to give to God to use for a whole month, and I don't budget correctly, there'll be no money left for God. I have to pay my bills, right? We take God off the throne and put our wants and desires on it, and then God is second. And Isaiah 15 through 17, actually, 12 through 17, is God is more important than you. God is more knowing than you. God is more powerful than you. Put him on the throne. You need to get off. Moving on to verse 18. In verse 18 it says this. To whom then will you liken God? Or what likeness will you compare him? This is not talking to non-believers. This is not talking to strong Christians, in fact, or strong believers in God. What this is talking to is the weak in faith. The ones that believe God just a little bit. The ones who are on the fence, saying, okay, you know that God's all-powerful. Who are you going to compare him to? Who can you compare God to? Who can we, right now in our church, compare to God to? Many of us compare him to a genie. Others, there's this idea. The reality is we cannot compare anything to God. He is so unfathomable. I spent my whole, from 18 to today, studying who God is. And I barely scratched the surface. And you know, if I live until I'm 500 years old, and every day I spent studying who God is, I would barely scratch the surface. God is unsearchable. He is more than what our minds can handle. But we try to put him in a box. Who can we compare God to? And then this is what happens in verse 19 and 20. It says, the workman molds an image, the goldsmith overspreads it with gold, and the silversmith casts silver chains. In verse 19, I just dropped all my bookmarks. In verse 19, we see a rich man's version of God. He takes the best of what he has, and he hires someone to make a god for him. And then in verse 20, it says, whoever is too impoverished for such a contribution chooses a tree that will not rot. He seeks for himself a skillful workman to prepare a carved image that will not totter. So you now have the poor man. See, everyone on earth tries to make a god for himself. You can call your God anything you want. You make a beautiful God out of gold and silver, and you can call Jesus and pray to it every day and say, I pray to Jesus. And Jesus is that guy over there, me. Or you can take what you can afford, and you build a God out of that. And the reason it says will not rot, will not totter, is many times the base of the wooden gods had to be very big, because the gods were heavy, because you would put offerings on it. And sometimes they would just make an image of a man, and they have little feet and a big upper body, and so when you put an offering on it, your God would fall over. I can just imagine worshiping my God in a little statue, put a little flower on it, bloop, oh God, I'm sorry, let me pick you up. Here you go, buddy. The reality is we make images that we worship that we call Jesus. Do you worship the Jesus of the Bible or the Jesus of your own making? You say, I believe in Jesus, but not my Jesus won't do that, even though the Bible says he does. Worship the true God. You can't compare him to anything. You can't make up your God. You can do anything you want, but that doesn't mean you're worshiping God. You can create a God of your own liking. Rich or poor, it doesn't matter. But that's a false God, and you know it. God is unique. God cannot be fashioned. God cannot be made. God is the God of the Bible. He's a unique God. He's a loving God. Then in verse 21, in verses 21 through 26, we see God's sovereignty. In verse 21, it says this, have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the very beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? We have 4 questions here. The first 2 says, do you not know? Did you not acknowledge God's creation, God's greatness? Second question, have you not heard? You've been deaf to his teachings. It literally is this. You're shutting your eyes and ears and walking through life. I'm going to try to do this. And if I'm about to fall off the stage, someone say something. Don't just let me fall. All right? This is what this verse is talking about. La, 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 la. Just like that. That is what this verse is describing. Someone going through life like this. Have you not known? Have you not heard? And then the next 2 questions, it says, look around you. Nature shows us the glory of God. Verse 21b, it says, have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? When I go outside and I see the stars, I hear the crickets. It is screaming, God is there. How many of us miss it? How many of us are driving, maybe this happened to me, driving to church today, and I saw the white fog. How many of us said, well, that is absolutely amazing that God can do that. That God has fog. Or was it, stupid fog, I can't see these bikers in front of me, going to run them over. How much complained about God's creation? There's 2 bikers on the road today as I was driving to church, like in the middle of the road. And I was going a little faster than the 55 miles said I should be going. You all stood. And I'm driving, listen to the rise and fall of General Lee's army. And all of a sudden, out of the fog, there's these 2 bikers. Oh, praise Jesus, you're enjoying the fog. Or, what are they thinking? I'm going to run them over. Man, I hope the car behind me sees them. If not, they should learn. And what's our response? We can experience God's glory all the time, and yet we miss it. We're camping, and you hear the little crickets. Oh, it's so noisy out here. I'm trying to sleep. Oh, I'm sorry that God's creation is bothering you, that he made this beautiful music for you to listen to. Well, you should go complain to God. Really? We complain about his creation. We're walking around with fingers in our ears and our eyes shut when God's glory is everywhere. Isn't it amazing that leaves can change color? And they're just beautiful colors? And then we get to clean them up out of our yard? And then we get to spend time outside enjoying his creation as we sweat? That's wonderful. Yay! But don't you get it? You have a yard that you have to clean. That you have the ability to walk outside and rake. That you live in a country that doesn't dictate when you do that. That you have a house to maintain. We miss it. We shut our ears and close our eyes to the glory of God that is around us constantly. Moving on to verse 22. It says, it is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretch out the heavens like a curtain, and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. This is answering the questions in verse 21. Have you not heard? Do you not know, have you not heard? The God who rules the world, it is he. It's explained the works of God. Verse 22 explains the works of God. And then go to verse 23 and 24. It says, he brings the princes to nothing. He makes the judges of the earth useless. Scarcely shall they be planted, scarcely shall they be sown. Scarcely shall their stock take root in the earth. When he who has blown on them, they will wither, and the whirlwind will take them away like stubble. God is in complete control. We may think we have an idea. We may think that we know what we're going to do. But the God who created the heavens and the earth, the God who calls and directs everything, He is in control. We are only caretakers. We do not make the final decision. God makes the final decision. God is in control, not us. That is a hard pill for many of us to swallow, that God has ultimate control and not us. But if God, who made this world and directs it, do you think He knows what He's doing with our lives? Yeah, He does. We can trust that God. Go with me. This is God's authority is seen in Job chapter 12, verse 17. Turn with me to Job chapter 12, verse 17. Job chapter 12, verse 17 says this. He leads counselors away plundered. He makes fools of the judges. And then verse 24 it says, He takes away the understanding of the chiefs of the people of the earth and makes them wander in paths in wilderness. What those two verses in Job are talking about is God is in control. No one goes to God and dictates to God what to do. No one goes to God and says, God, this is how you need to do this. When counselors, when those of strength go to God, they walk away completely dumbfounded that they thought they could go to God. The story of Job, if you do not know, is, or if you've forgotten, is Job was a very wealthy man in the time of Abraham. And God took away everything. Satan attacked Job, took everything but his life. And Job had the audacity to say to God, why? And you know what God's answer to Job was? I'm God. You don't ask me why. That is the synopsis of the book of Job. Job struggles, asks God why, and God goes, God, deal with it. We don't get to question God. We don't have the ability to comprehend all that God does. What we have the ability to do is ask for His help. We don't question God. And go to verse 25 in Isaiah. Isaiah 40, verse 25. It says this. To whom then will you liken me, or to whom shall I be equal, says the Holy One. This is again finishing another little statement. It's a look back to verse 18. Verse 18 says this. To whom then will you liken God, or what likeness will you compare to Him? What God is saying is God's sovereignty is unlike anything else. God is unique. And God rules the world unlike anyone before or after. And then, in verse 26, it says this. Lift up your eyes on high and see who has created these things, who brings out their hosts by number. He calls them by name. He's talking about the stars. He knows every star's name. It says, by the greatness of His might and the strength of His power, not one is missing. Who can we compare to? Who can be like our God, who directs the stars and knows creation by name? He knows every hair on your head. This God wants you to experience His glory. But how do we do that? How do we experience a glory of that magnitude? Well, verses 27 through 31 tells us how we can experience that glory. Go with me to verse 27. It says, Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my just claim is passed over by my God. Again, Isaiah is talking to people who have, their faith has been shaken. Their faith is weak. Israel has gone through some really weird trials. And I say weird because it's of their own making, and it just baffles that a nation can be taken captive by Babylon, and within 70 years, they're back. That hasn't happened in the Babylonian history before. That the Assyrian nation has come down from the north, taken the northern 10 tribes of Israel, and they're gone. But the bottom 2 are still there. That's weird. God has protected them in a magnificent way. And Israel is saying, God isn't seeing us. God isn't watching over me. Bad things are happening in my life. Where's God? Who here has had a trial in their life, and during that trial said, where is God? Who here has ever been depressed and going, I need help. Where is God? God says He loves me, but I'm feeling nothing. We all have times in our lives where we question where God is. And verse 27 says, why are you asking such crazy questions? Why are you asking where God is? Verse 28, our hope. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, neither faints nor is weary. His understanding is unsearchable. Do we not know God sees us? The everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the world. He doesn't grow tired of us. He doesn't grow weary of us. He loves us. In verse 29, He gives power to the weak, and to those who have no might He increases strength. The God, the creator of the ends of the earth, is unsearchable, gives power to those who need it. Gives strength to those who need it. And then verse 30 through 31. Even youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fail. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint. Verse 30 and 31 say this. We think we have power, but we get tired. Our power fails. God's does not. If you want an unending source of power, put your trust in God and He'll give it to you. This whole passage, verses 12 through 31, can be summed up like this. An explanation of who God is, verses 12 through 26. Who God is, all-knowing, all-powerful, and the ultimate man. That is who God is. Verses 27 through 31, how we can experience His glory. When I said that we can experience the glory of God in the little things are how we experience His glory. The God of the universe, the Creator, the almighty, powerful God, says that when you are weak, when you need help, when you are struggling, He will give you all His power, all His glory. Just trust Him. If I ask who here has had a bad week in their life, we'll all raise our hands. This last week has been struggling for my wife and I. Our kids have been sick, and my wife's grandmother died. We are able to experience God's glory in those moments because He is giving us our strength to get through. When I am sick and I don't want to get up, but I know that my daughter needs breakfast, or she wanted to wake up at 5:30, that's when I say, God, give me strength to get out of bed and make pancakes. And when I get out of bed, that's experiencing God's glory in my life, that He gave me that strength. When I have to go to work and I know I'm going to have a meeting I don't want to go to, or that boss is going to be annoying to me, I say, God, help me through. And I get through the day. That is God's glory in my life. He gave me His strength, His power to do something I didn't have the ability to do. When you're tired in the morning and you have to go do something, ask God for strength. Don't try to do it on your own. You can't. That's why you're tired. Say, God, I need help right now. Have faith that God will help you, and He will. It's the little things. It is the little things that show us God's glory. Trust God in the little things and experience His glory every day. Young men will stumble. Young men will fall. Our strength is not enough for what we need, but God's is. Don't put your faith in yourself. put your faith in God and experience His glory. Let's pray. Father God, your glory is absolutely unfathomable to us. That we, your people, can experience your glory every day when we need it. I pray right now that we stop trusting ourselves and trust you. Amen. As we come and sing our final song, my invitation is this. Don't trust yourself. Trust God. If you've been trusting yourself to get through, come forward and give it to God. And say, God, I'm going to trust your strength. The second part of the invitation is you might be here today and you might be trusting yourself, your works to get you to heaven. God says that it is by faith and faith alone. The book of Ephesians says that you are saved through faith, not of works. God died for you. And if you want to spend eternity with Him, you cannot earn it. You need to say, God, I'm going to trust that you did the work. You died on the cross. And I'm putting my faith in you. If you've never done that and you'd like to, please come forward and give your life to God. If you're trusting on yourself to get through, come forward and give your life to God. Say, God, I'm going to trust you for